Alright, hello everyone. Today we have 5 big pages of kit reviews, and I had to spend quite a while reading all of this to understanding the flow of these characters, but I think I got it, and so I'm ready to talk about these characters here. Take note from the start that Don Quixote should be paired with Don Quixote ID. Right? The ego and the ID are meant to go together and is very, very powerful. We can just look at the passive honestly, because the rest of this part here, you can read it and you get a bit confused, but the passive should be very easy to understand why this ego is so damn good. First off, you gain charge potency every time this unit consumes X cumulative charge count. If you already gain charge normally, then you do not stack it. But with your base attacks that consume charge count, you now deal more damage for every charge on self. So first off, we have damage multiplier. The next one is very, very simple and very, very OP. If you are Dawn, love and hate, you gain additional skill tree. Yep, that's it. That's it, you just gain one more skill tree, and that's why this ego is so damn important, because you get one more skill tree, and one more skill tree in Refraction Railway, yeah, that is a very, very powerful thing to take in RR, and now they gave it to you in the form of an ego. It's a very, very powerful thing to go and look forward to. I do not know what are the conditions or what are the caveats of this one over here, but we'll wait for the actual ID to drop and see some numbers first before I go and talk about this one here. Essentially right now, just from kit review, additional skill tree, that is just absolute dub, right? Very, very powerful thing to go and look for. Next, the ego is divided into positive and negative form. So you have the negative corrosion and the positive ego awakening. They are also appropriately divided in the Dawn version. Dawn also has 2 forms. She has the light version and the dark side version. So what you need to do here is use the light side when it's light side time, and use the dark side when it's the dark side time. And this ego is meant to cash out. It's a cash out attack. What you need to do here is that when you pop the regular form, you ideally want to be in Magical Girl. When you are in Magical Girl form, you now get an enhanced version of the chant. The chant is very, very good, right? And then if you are also in the regular form, you now gain additional charge attack weight instead of -X. It's just better. Then you consume all charge count to heal. Yes, this is the healing form. You are legit helping your team with this form here. It's just focused on helping. Buffing your team, helping your team heal, and stabilizing the team overall. And if you are Dawn, you also gain Magical Arcana. We'll talk about that when we talk about Dawn, because it's a lot easier there. On hit, gain charge count, inflict Mark of Villainy, inflict charge -X rupture, and this unit here is Magical Girl, you also inflict rupture count. Just because you see rupture and rupture count doesn't really mean that this ID is actually focused into those rules. I have to see the numbers, but most likely these characters are not meant to be in the rupture or the sinking team com. However, Rodion is. We'll talk about her later. Alright, so this character here is basically use the positive form to buff your allies. Magical Girl's Chant gives your allies attack power up and damage up. It also makes it so that your allies that use skills that gain or consume charge count get additional final power and deal more damage. That is very, very powerful, right? Multi-Cracks will love it, your Hong Lu will love it, and so on and so forth. So this is a very, very powerful thing. W Ryosho also loves it, right? Very, very good stuff. Okay, so that's the buff form. Now we go to the cash out form, the big damage form. Negative coins, take note. Gain attack weight by your charge. If you are in the regressive form, you ideally should be, you gain attack weight by charge plus X instead, so additional attack weight. You also consume all charge count to deal more damage for every charge count consumed. If the target has Mark of Villainy, deal more damage for every charge. If this unit has Hysteria, deal even more damage for every charge instead. Don't worry about this one, we will explain later. Deal more damage for every X, lose base power for every cracked coin because it's a negative coin. And if you are in if you are on Dawn with Love and Hatred, you also gain Hysteria. And after that, gain charge count, Mark of Villainy, sinking count. They're exactly the same as the top side. So this one here basically wants Mark of Villainy and wants a lot of charge potency. So popping this ego is really more of a cash out ego, unless you want to pop it purely for the sake of just getting the additional skill tree use, and also pumping up a little bit of your charge count. So using it a bit early with a little bit of SP, of course, because it's a WoW ego. WoW ego, it will consume too much SP, so sometimes it corrodes you. So you want to be safe, you just go one turn first. After that, you pop an ego, this to get your additional skill tree, and then from there you just rotate as per normal. Right? This character is all about flowing from light side to dark side, back to light side, back to dark side, and repeat and repeat and repeat non-stop. So now let's talk about the Dawn itself. That's pretty much the ego. The ego gives skill tree, and that is really all you need to know, and also has a light side and a dark side. And Dawn will also have a light side and a dark side. This Dawn is functioned by a unique charge. She needs unique charge in order to make her skills really, really powerful. She also will have charge potency gain just by eating that Love and Hatred stacks. this is just unique charge and can be filled by anything that says give charge count to ally or gives charge count on hit and so on and so forth, right? It functions the same way, right? So this Dawn here is going to be very focused into charge teams, and I think I really like that. This Dawn is very, very powerful for charge teams. At encounter start, if you do not have Hysteria, you gain Hysteria. At encounter start, if this unit does not have Love and Hatred, gain Love and Hatred. You understand this more once you look at this. Turn start, at 0 or higher SP, you are Magical Girl. At less than 0 SP, you are now Depressed Girl, right? So this is how it works. Hysteria, you get it when you're depressed, and you lose it when you're happy. So you actually cannot maintain Hysteria the entire time. Love and Hatred does not give a shit. You can be depressed, you can be happy, and you will still get love and hatred no matter what. So Hysteria is something that's only really consumed by the dark side, exactly, right? So dark side, you generate a lot of Hysteria, and then you want to save it for a big amount of stacks, and then after that, you go and dump it out with maybe your Arcana beats. Turn start, you can force your character to go positive or negative depending on SP healings, or you choose to pop an ego round 1 to nuke your sanity into your negative form, and so on and so forth. There's lots of ways to manipulate your own sanity to transform yourself forcefully, but by default, the character will transform herself by using Magical Arcana. Magical Arcana is that your base attacks get more damage, just free damage bonus, and at turn end and X stack, and with Y or higher sanity, you change the SP to Y, and that Y is most likely going to be negative sanity, because if you look at the trailer, Dawn will crash to the floor and then slam her fist on the floor, and she looks very, very depressed. So I think that is the trigger for transforming, and this is what Magical Arcana is meant to do. It's meant to transform you back into the depression mode. Alright? So that's what's going to happen. Take note that Dawn cannot corrode herself by force with regular skills. You can still corrode yourself by force if you use an ego or you go and get hit by an enemy that applied sinking onto you. So that is the two ways to actually force yourself. By default, if you just spam win rate, you cannot actually depress yourself to that point. So this is actually just a bit of power creep on N Sinclair's side, for N Sinclair, right? Next is the passive. Deal more damage for every love and hate. Yep, just like that. And then combat start, you also gain Magical Arcana. So you're just gonna naturally transform yourself into your despair form eventually. If among allies that gain charge count with their base attack skills, one ally with the least charge count uses a base attack skill that gains charge count, they gain charge count. And they also heal and they also gain SP. This is just a very, very powerful support passive to give to a charge count unit, but most likely this character is a must-have in every single charge count team because she's very, very powerful. Look at the skill tree first. Yes, skill 3 is the big skill for both sides of the character. Regular form, light form, and the depression form, the reverse Arcana slave. Deal more damage for every Magical Arcana on yourself. This side over here will consume Magical Arcana to gain attack weight. This side here will deal more damage for every love and hatred on yourself. This side here will also deal the exact same one, right? Deal more damage for every love and hate on self, but it's not the same scaling as this one over here, right? Also gains clash power for every love and hate count consumed. This is going to be a negative coin skill, and this is going to be a positive coin skill. Gain coin power for every blah 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 consumed. This one doesn't really get coin power, right? It has to be negative coin power for it to matter. So this one is mostly going to be focused on AoEing instead of getting additional coin power. So it's going to have a lot of multipliers, and it's going to focus on AoE rather than this one, which focuses on single target and gives you a bunch of coin power. Then you also gain love and hate count at the end here. For this one, you don't really gain back love and hate count. Instead, you gain back sanity. You legit heal with this formula over here, a bunch of sanity. This formula is the exact same one on Wild Hunt Heathcliff, which transforms him back from his horse depressed mode into his regular not so depressed mode. So that is what's going to happen here with these two skills. One is to transform you back and one is to transform you forwards. Why do I need another skill tree? Because I can only use this one time, right? Only one skill tree in the entire deck, which means that I need to have two skill trees so I can have another way to go back into my regular form. That's why the extra skill tree is so good for this character. It allows you to go back into your regular form just by having two of these very, very powerful skills, right? And just having these two also makes it so that you do a lot of damage, right? Just a ton of damage as well. Okay, after attack you gain Magical Arcana. So if you wanted to force yourself into your depression mode, your Magical Arcana, you can actually use your skill tree and you get that Magical Arcana and it just forces you into the depression mode, which is over here, right? And then your skill 1 is just your gain love and hate count, gain. Both of these are designed a bit like the multi-crack skill 2s where they consume and then you gain after. Consume, gain after. All of these skills over here will lose you SP, even this one, but it loses on use and then restores your SP at turn end. So that's how it works, right? So this is all of Dawn's kit. All of it is basically a flow. from positive side to the dark side to the positive side to the dark side. You can force Dawn to go faster by popping Ego or by popping skill tree. You get more skill tree by popping Ego anyway. Once you get more charge potency on your love and hatred stacks, you might want to just start firing your gigantic Egos, because your Egos gain additional stats whenever they have charge potency on them. Gain charge potency minus X attack weight. Actually for her it's just gain charge attack weight. Inflict charge minus X rupture. Gain attack weight by charge plus X instead, and so on and so forth. So these are some things that you will cash out on in the late game when you've charged up, and these are the things that you will use early game to just flow, to just start eating the charge count. When you start eating the charge count, you start stacking, and then you start popping your gigantic skills. These characters must be in their respective charge count teams, otherwise the stacking is going to be very, very slow. However, I do believe that Dawn is going to be a very, very solid generalist just because she can fund herself with charge count as well. She can pop the Ego, which gives her charge count. She has Teleport Dawn, which gives her 10 charge count by default. She has so many things that give her additional charge count that she might be a very, very powerful generalist. So do take note of that when you're pulling for this. You do want these two. You do want these two Egos, definitely. Otherwise, you're not getting free damage percent and you're not getting another skill tree. But it's not over if you did not pull this one over here. You can just get her later, because this ID is definitely perfectly functional. Is just losing a lot of power due to one minus skill tree over here. But this ID is still very, very fun, very, very cool. It's a phase thing. Manage the light phase into the dark phase, into the light phase, into the dark phase, and repeat forever. It's a very, very fun thing to go and do. Right. So now we go to Rodion. Rodion is a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. But basically, Rodion has two sides. She has the light side, the protection side. She's a knight. She wants to protect you. She gains protecting swords. Protecting swords, what do these do? Protecting swords gives you defense level up, gives you additional aggro, expires at turn end. Yes, it expires at turn end. However, if you're in the blessing stance, you gain protecting sword for every X SP. So you gain a bunch of swords and then you dump a bunch of swords. You gain a bunch of swords, you dump a bunch of swords. My friend predicted that this is going to be 6 sanity. So if you have about 30 sanity, you will be able to get a bunch of your protecting swords already. Right? When clash ends, inflict sinking potency. When hit, inflict sinking onto the attacker. When you get hit, so you're the knight, you must get hit, so you apply depression to the enemy, and then for every X SP, you inflict Y more sinking potency with the above effects. So this is a sinking potency focused stance. And then what about Despair? Despair is the exact opposite of all of these stats that you just saw. Gain piercing sword for every X SP. This one, my friend predicts, is going to be negative SP, right? When clash ends, inflict sinking count. On hit with the first coin of a base attack skill, inflict sinking count, and for every X SP, you now inflict Y more sinking count with the above effects. Your skills are now minus coins. So it's almost similar to Dawn. You have a plus form and you have a minus form. However, this one is now piercing swords, and piercing swords gives you offense level, gives you negative aggro. Yes, negative aggro instead of positive aggro. A new thing in Limbus company from what I understand. Next is going to be Tear Sharpen. Tear Sharpen is at turn start, you gain deep tears. At 3 stacks, you gain additional deep tears. And at turn end, you lose SP. So there is a way for you to depress yourself, which is to just stab yourself with a bunch of these swords, just like in the boss fight with the Knight of Despair. Base attack skills also now deal stack times X% damage. That is very, very powerful, right? Because you can basically have this permanently. There's no decay of Tear Sharpen. The only thing that can remove your Tear Sharpened is if you have 3 of them, which I'll talk about in a little bit. If this unit has Blessing, gain Clash power up by the effect stack. If the unit has Despair, you gain Pierce power up by the effect stack. This all just combines into a very, very powerful ID with a lot of extra stats. You can get a bunch of DPS and a bunch of sinking count application with the DPS form, the Despair form. You can go into the tanking form to apply sinking potency instead and get very, very powerful clashing and great aggro generation from this character over here. Healing wise, this character doesn't really have any healing, but she does have a bunch of defense level up, and she's able to also apply sinking onto the attacker. So if you are thirsting for some potency, you can use the Blessing form first and then later swap to the Despair form when you need more count, or you go count first and then go back to Blessing, and so on and so forth. The way you reset is through the Tear Sharpen mechanic. We'll get there eventually because we still have to go through all this stuff over here. Deep Tears, unique charge, potency is fixed. You cannot get higher than 1. So this one is not a charge character. Okay, it's legit not a charge character. You do not get more charge potencies and make her into a very strong character. This character by default is already a strong character. Resource used by certain skills for additional effects. Can stack up to 20 count only. Take note, interestingly enough, there's no wording here that says you lose it 1 per turn. It seems like you can actually keep Deep Tears forever, so it's not -1 per turn, which is very, very interesting. Passive. At 0 or higher SP, you are blessed. and at less than 0 SP, you're despaired. Same as Dawn, right? Plus coin, minus coin. When you gain charge count, you gain deep tears instead. And this deep tears is unaffected by any charge potency at all. The unit's SP cannot drop below minus 40 from the following effects, which is your base skills, your ally support passives, your tier sharpens, and from ally deaths. Right, so that is all of the things that makes you unable to corrode. She's very, very stable. Depression, despair is an old friend of Rodion, so she is able to control her ego very, very well. In an encounter, when this unit takes damage that brings its SP to minus 45, you will block it from corroding, which is kind of insane. So this is not tanking, it's not 1 HP you live, no, it's I will not corrode, I will hold the line. So I guess this is to show Rodion's heart is very, very strong also in some ways. She has a lot of she might have a lot of the despair, but she has a very, very strong heart over here. That's why her symbol is the heart, you know, the tattoo. I think that's what it means, at least. Could be wrong, but I think that's just my fan theory right now. Alright, break, tear, and pierce. Passive. If you have piercing swords, before hitting an enemy with a base attack skill, you consume piercing sword to inflict sinking potency. And just like that, it seems like the piercing side, right, is more focused on to just doing a bunch of very, very nice stuff. Because now you are doing a lot of the sinking count, but you also have sinking potency from the piercing sword. So the despair form just seems like a very aggressive, something like a Butler Otis, where you're just hitting and applying a bunch of the sinking status to the enemy. And the regular form looks a little bit L. So yes, that's why it initially looks like. We will just have to wait and see what the numbers are for these two forms, because right now I don't have much numbers, so I'm not too sure which one's going to be better. But tentatively, if there's no numbers, I assume that the piercing form, the despair form, is going to be a lot stronger just because of this piercing part over here. It's legit just one more attack skill coin, and it also gives sinking potency. That's really, really nice. And if you have X plus piercing sword, before this turn's final base attack skill's final coin hits, you consume all of your piercing swords and inflict it as sinking potency. So just like that, I think the DPS form is very, very powerful for sinking. You're able to get a lot of free sinking potency here, and your regular clashes already inflict sinking count, making her very, very strong. She also has additional sinking count with the above effect, so it looks very, very strong already off the bat. If this effect activated, yes, the 3 tier sharpen part. So if you are at 2 stacks, you can maintain that forever. But once you hit 3, before you hit an enemy with the final coin of a base attack, consume all tier sharpen to inflict sinking and sinking count, and you now deal more damage with that coin. If you activated this, you now go back to 0 sanity, right? So that is legit what happens here. You will just go back to normal. So when do you cash out on your tier sharpen? You need to activate your counter skill to go into your 3rd stack of a tier sharpened, and then after that you need to pop a very, very big skill tree and then cash out really, really hard with that damage, and then you go back to normal, and then you can repeat that over and over. So that's the point of going to tier sharpen form over here. Of course, if you want to be brainless, just go and tier sharpen twice and get 2 stacks and just maintain 2 stacks for the rest of the game, because the only way you get tier sharpened is by stabbing yourself willingly with your counter skill and nothing else. So that is something that gives Rodion extreme control over her ego. She is very good at controlling her ego compared to Dawn, right? When in blessing state, take minus SP divided by X% HP damage from attacks. You also get protection, and at 5, you get more protection and clash power up instead. So this is a very defensive focused stance. Despair, you deal more damage based on your negative SP, and then you also get damage up from piercing swords, and you get even more, and you also get power up. So this is a very, very DPS focused stance. And then support passive, for those who despair, apply to the ally with the earliest deployment. If at X or less SP, minus skill coins gain final power, and then this one, gain final power and deal more damage. Lament, mourn, and despair. Oh my god, very, very interesting support passive for just one man, right? Looks really, really, really spicy for an ID, right? So that's pretty much all of her passives. We will now talk about the skills itself. The skills itself are pretty simple to understand actually, because the only ones you need to really know is just the counter. It's like Hey Shows, right? Hey Shows, I counter, I go fast, now I press all my win rates, I win the game, right? This is pretty similar actually. All you need to do is just press the defense twice. When you do that, you will gain deep tiers, and you also lose SP and gain tier sharpen. And if this unit has tier sharpen, you lose tier sharpen stack times X more sanity. So by stabbing yourself twice, you now have made yourself into a very, very depressed person. After you stab yourself one time, assuming you started with 0 sanity, you now go into weathered pride actually, because now you are in despair form, and despair form's counter is going to be this one over here. You gain final power instead, so this is a negative coin one already. You gain deep tiers. You can go again with this one over here if you want, and this is also a 2 coin attack form. As you can see, 1 attack and then 2 attacks. This is just the more offensive version. Also inflicts sinking twice. So you stab yourself here, and now you are ready to press the win rate button for this entire part over here. It's very self-explanatory here. Sinking targets, you love to hit them. You lose SP, but you cannot actually drop below a certain amount of SP. And then you also gain deep tears, and at combat start, you always gain additional deep tears. Where do the deep tears give you more damage, sir? Oh, here, at skill 2. At X plus deep tears, you consume it to deal more damage. And at combat start, you gain additional deep tears equal to piercing sword this unit had at combat start. So you can refill your deep tears very, very easily, especially since the tear sharpened also gives you deep tears. So you are going to get a lot of these deep tears just by swinging your shit at the enemy. Now skill 3-2, this is where at X plus deep tears, consume up to Y deep tears and you do an insane amount of damage based on the stack consumed with additional base power. And if you consumed tear sharpen, reuse coin once. Oh my god, 4 coin skill 3-2? Holy shit, welcome back and Sinclair with multipliers. This shit is going to hit super hard. So when you are ready to unleash the full might of your tear sharpen, you activate Weathered Pride and fire off Arcana, Tear and Pierce, and you go and destroy whatever enemy you hit with 1 billion damage. And if you defeat a target, you also regain half of the deep tears. That resets you back to 0. Stab yourself, you're back at it again. At this point, if the enemy is not dead, I'll be very, very surprised, because this skill is a reuse coin of a negative coin with final power and multiplier. How is he still alive after this skill? You have to wonder, especially since you're also doing sinking damage to the target, assuming that is an abnormality. So it's going to do so much damage with this skill 3-2 over here. Looks really, really powerful DPS. And then for the regular form, she looks insanely tanky as well. She's like DC Rodion. She can legit have a bunch of protection on her with a lot of aggro and a ton of clash power. She gets clash power. So it looks super, super defensive as well. And if you use this one over here, if you have Tear Sharpen or have consumed it with this coin, you also deal more damage and you inflict sinking potency equal to the protecting sword and so on and so forth. Very, very similar to this form over here. So I want to see the numbers first before I conclude anything here. But the Despair form looks like an insane DPS and the regular form looks like an insane tank. And you can choose full control over the entire ID compared to Dawn, who must flow between each of the forms back and forth, showing that Rodion is truly the one in control of her emotions compared to someone like Dawn, who is very flippy-floppy with her emotions. Looks super good, great lore, and just absolutely amazing ID design. Really, really good stuff, right? Of course, this one is a bit of an arm. There's an extra skill tree here, sir, so I kind of want to have that ego kind of thing, right? So yeah, they threw in a big skill tree here that makes the flow a lot better, and also is another skill tree. You love more skill trees, and that is why this ego is a must-have for the Don Quixote. Okay, so that is pretty much all of the stuff to talk about for these 3 characters and egos. Very, very highly recommended the pool, because I believe they are very strong generalists even if you are not running the sinking team. Because this character here, looking at the numbers, the initial like just previews, right? This sword gives her additional sinking count. This part also gives her additional sinking potency, meaning that she might be able to legit maintain a certain amount of sinking on the targets, assuming her teammates don't eat all of it. So she is very, very powerful as a generalist already, right? And then there's also Dawn, who can actually build up her own charge count and then just go and swing. And then after you swing, you just transform back and forth. Then you just unleash big bangs, or you just like Bing Chilling and just activate skill 3-2 twice, because you have 2 of these instead, right? So you can just do whatever you want with the Dawn. So I think that they are very powerful generalist characters. So if you don't have any, feel free to pick them up. And if not, they are very, very good for sinking and for charge count respectively. So I think if you're going for any of those team comps, you want to pick up these 2 characters here. Holy shit, guys, charge count getting massive buffs in 2025 is absolutely crazy. This is the season of charge, baby. Look at this Don Quixote. Super, super interesting and fun looking character to go and micromanage and do all this weird big bang stuff over here. I can't wait to go and test out these characters in actual numbers. Alright, so that's going to be it, guys, for this video. If I missed anything, feel free to let me know. If I made a mistake, also just let me know. And I shall see you guys in the next video. Good luck with your Walpurgis pulls if you're pulling. If you're saving for Arknights, that's also understandable, but it's also a very, very tempting banner to go and pull for. I will be pulling, but I will also be swiping. So if you are going to follow me, you better be ready to swipe, because I'm going to swipe for Arknights. I'm going to swipe for this one as well. Alright, that's all, guys. I shall see you guys next time. Bye bye.